Hey there, I'm your host Lasoe, and this is part 4 of the inventory system series. In the last episode, we created a pickup function, and in today's video, we'll be creating the UI for our inventory. So let's begin. Let's begin by creating a player controller. So go into your content drawer, third person, blueprints, right click, go into blueprint class, and find yourself a player controller. Now I'll call this pp_my controller, but you call it whatever you need. You can save it. Now you can either set it in your third person game mode, or if you go into settings and hit world settings, you'll get a world settings tab. And we can also see this, where would this be? Game mode right there. Selected game mode, and we can change the player controller class to our own controller and save that. Next, let's go ahead and a folder back. We'll create a new folder for the UI. And this UI will only be for the player HUD. So go to user interface, widget blueprint, user widget, WB_player HUD, like so. And all we want to do inside, let's make this big and add a canvas panel. And here we'll display all of the stuff that needs to be on the screen. Now this widget needs to run on event begin play. So let's go back to our player controller, and in the event graph on event begin play, we will, or rather even here, custom event, create player HUD. What we can do is create widget, which will be our player HUD, promote this to a variable, WB_player HUD, and add this to viewport. And then this event, we can call on event begin play. So it executes all this code. Compile and save. Next, let's go ahead and create the UI for our inventory. So go into your inventory system folder, your UI, right click, go to user interface, widget blueprint, user widget. And this widget will represent every single item in your inventory. So let's give it a name of inventory slot. Inside here, we want to add a size box, and we are going to override the width and the height. So let's do 70 by 70. And let's do desired on screen. Next, we want to add a button to this. And with this button, padding 0, but go to style and set the normal padding to be 0 as well. And the press padding 0 too. And that's all good. Next, on top of this, we want to add a border. So let's go ahead and add a border. And this will be full and padding 0. Now the color for this I have saved here. So let me copy that. And we can paste this in the brush color. Like so. We can add it there. On top of this border, we're going to have a second border, this time of padding 2. And this basically is how your item would look like if the slot is empty. So let's give this a second color, which I have saved here. Now, of course, add whatever colors you want. This is personal preference, like so. And that's our empty slot, essentially. On top of this, we want an overlay. And inside of our overlay, we can mess around. But before we do, let's make this padding 0 so it fits with the second border. And let's add an image. And this image will represent our icon. So let's make it full. And let's give it a name of img_item image. And then we want to add a perhaps second size box. And we will add this to our overlay. And I'll place this size box, I'll override it to a 15 and 15. Put it in the bottom left corner And inside, let's hide this image for a second. I want to add a text. And this text will be of size 8. And I want the padding on this text to be 0. And the text, we can give it a maximum value of 10 since that's what I'm using. And it looks pretty reasonable how it is already for me. But if I center it, it looks a lot better. For the root, so if you click on the root, we want this to be focusable. And we also want to give this a padding of 2 perhaps, or you could do 1 if you want. Mess around with this value essentially. Compile and save. Next, we want to go ahead and open up our graph. And inside of our graph, we can delete the construct and event tick. We want the event reconstruct. So let's start by creating an item ID variable, which will be of type name. And let's also create a item quantity, which will be of type integer. And let's make these instance editable and exposed on spawn. And with that, let's also add our inventory component. And this will be of type VPC underscore inventory object reference, as well instance editable and exposed on spawn. From here, I'm going to get my item ID and we'll do a get row because we want some details of our item so we can present them on the screen. Data table, set it to your data table there. From the break row, we get the item data. And first on our list, we have our item image. So let's do a set brush from texture, like so. And if we connect the image to there, we're all set up. Row found goes in here. And the second thing we want would be the quantity, which we have here. So we can hide all the unconnected pins. But in order to set our quantity, we need this text to be editable. So go back, select your text, make it variable, and do txt underscore item quantity. Again, capital U. Oh, does not want to change now, does it? Quantity. No, it does not want to change. What if I rename it and rename it again? txt item quantity. There we go. So let's go back. And since this is now editable, we can do set text. And if we connect this there, it'll convert it for us and display it. And lastly, I want to do a set visibility on the icon. So let's make this visible first of all. And the size box of the text. So let's convert this and make this a box underscore item quantity. On here, we'll do set visibility. And we'll get our text, and or not text rather, our box, our image, since that's what it got, and our box. There we go. And if the row is not found, well, this will be set to collapsed. Nothing's there. And if this has been found, well, then we're going to set it to visible. And that's pretty much it for your inventory slot. So let's compile that and save. Next, let's go ahead and create a widget for our inventory. So let's close this down, go into your UI, right click user widget, widget blueprint, user widget, WB underscore inventory. Inside here, we'll use a border to be the outline for our inventory. Now for the color, I have it saved here. So you'll see me copy pasting code throughout the series. Have them all saved on the page. So there we are, put it in. And on top of this, we'll have an overlay. The reason for this is we'll be able to easily lay out all of our stuff. So let's give this a padding of 10. And inside, let's begin by giving a few size boxes. The first size box will be responsible for the title, so fill it horizontally. Height override will do of 50, and we'll leave it as is. We can copy this then, paste it, and the second padding will be on top of 60. And height override will leave at 50. We copy this once again, paste it. The override on top will be 120 this time, and the override on height will be 85. And our last and final size box will be for the inventory, and this will have a padding of 215 on top and an override height of nothing, but we'll make it full. And this is our laid out inventory. So let's begin by giving a text to our first size box, and we should probably name them. So let's go ahead and call this size box title. Next one called size box underscore filters. Next size box. Oh, I didn't do anything there. Size box hotbar. And our last will be our size box inventory. So let's go back to our title size box. We want this to be in the center, and let's call it inventory. Filters we'll take care of later, same with the hotbar. But for our inventory here, what we can do is let's begin by adding a overlay. And within this overlay, what we can do is add a border. Like so. This overlay is full, and this border will make full as well. And let's give it a color. Where is my inner border color? There we are. Paste this into the brush. Like so. And inside of this, I'm going to add a scroll box. Now you don't have to, but the scroll box, what this will do is if we run out of space on our screen, we'll be able to scroll down and see the remaining slots. And the important part will be that wrap box. So this will represent all the widgets on the screen. And I apologize for any noise you hear. There's construction happening outside. So hopefully it's not too bad. On the wrap box, let's make it variable and let's give it a name, maybe inventory. And you want to fill like so. And for now, we're pretty much done here. So let's compile and save and head to the event graph. In the event graph, let's begin by creating a variable called inventory component. And this will be of type BPC underscore inventory object reference. And let's make this instance editable and exposed on spawn. Next, let's get rid of event tick and event construct. And here we will do a validated get of our inventory component. Next, let's go ahead and get slots, and we'll do a for each loop. So for every single slot it finds, it's going to create a widget, and the widget in question will be our inventory slot, like so. So go ahead, break this open, and add in your item ID, your item quantity, and also give it the inventory component, which we have handy here, and plug that in. On the return node, what we'll do is we'll get our wrap box, which will hold all of our widgets, and we'll do a add child to wrap box, like so. And that's pretty much most of it. On here, we want to create a custom event, which will refresh our inventory. So let's call it refresh inventory, like so. And we want to pass in our inventory component, so set it like that. And we also want to clear the children so it can add the new children again. So do a clear children. And then we'll plug that into our validated get, like so. And yeah, that's pretty much all for now. Let's compile and save, and we can go ahead and create our display. So right click here, user interface, widget blueprint, user widget, wb_player display. And we'll have two of these, one for the player's inventory when you're alone, and one for the container inventory when you're inside of a inventory. Let's open up the player display. Let's begin by adding a canvas panel to our player display. And inside of this, we'll add a border. And this border will be full. So set these guys to 0 and give it a brush color of black at 0.2 opacity. Now inside of this, we'll add a blur. And this blur we'll put inside of the border, blur strength at 3. And now if we search for our inventory, we get both the slot and the inventory widget. We're interested in the inventory widget. So click on it and drag it into your canvas panel. Now here you can decide where you want it to be. I'll have it on the left-hand side. So I'll set this to 0. Position on X, I'll do 60. Size, I have it here. I'll do 710 by 800. So this is exactly how you've seen it on the very first video. And the alignment will do 0 and 0.5. And anything else I need to be aware of? I don't think so. That's pretty much it. So let's exit this, compile and save. And let's head to the event graph. In the event graph, we want to have the pre-construct widget. We can leave event construct. We'll need that in a second. And on pre-construct, we want to get our inventory. And we create a function earlier, which we called refresh inventory. So every time it's opened, it's going to refresh. And we'll plug that into here. The inventory component is going to be the player character's inventory. So let's get player character and let's get component by class. And we're looking for our BPC_inventory. So plug that into there. And later when we're creating the hotbar, we'll also add it in here. On event construct, we want to do a get player controller. And we want to do a set show mouse cursor. So when the inventory is created, we want the mouse to be visible on the screen. And then we want to do set UI only. And the widget in focus will be our inventory, but we need to make sure we click on the root and make this is focusable. Let's head back and drag this into the focus. And that's pretty much it for construct, but now we need to destroy it. So what happens when we destroy it? Search for destruct event destruct. And this will be fairly similar. We'll get our player controller and our mouse, but this will be invisible now. The mouse is gone. And let's also do a is valid to avoid few issues we can get if the player controller does not exist, if the character is destroyed. And we'll do a set input game only, like so. Next, let's go ahead and override the button we need to press in order for these to happen. So in our functions, go to override and look for on key down. Inside of on key down event, we want to get key and we want to check which key has been pressed. So if you remember, I had this set up on my I key and the tab key. So I'm going to check for both. And either or value can trigger this. So we'll do a or boolean, which will go into a branch. Now, if this has succeeded, we'll simply remove from parent, like so, and the return value will do handled, like this. And that's all we need to do for now. Later, we'll come back to this and add a event dispatcher to notify us when this has been closed. And we'll be using this for our containers. So compile and save. And before I forget, let's go into our event graph and we want to create some sound effects for when we create our inventory and when we destroy it. And in order to do that, we need to create a structure. So go into your sound effects folder and create a new structure for your inventory. I'll call mine s_inventory sound effects. And inside, we want this type to be a sound base. And we want two variables. One for the, can I select everything? Open. And one for the close sound. Let's save that and exit. And now back in our player display, let's create our widget called inventory sound effects. And this will be the type we just created. So structure, inventory, sound effects. And if we open this up, compile first, we can add the open sound. So I have mine here, open inventory and close inventory. There we are. So simply get your variable. And what you want to do is you want to break this and we'll do a play sound at location. And we want two of these. One goes here and the second goes here. Look, your open sound here, your close sound in there. And the location will be get owning player. And we'll do get actor location. And you're set to go. So that's pretty much it for our player display at the moment. Let's compile and save it. And next, let's go ahead and open up our player HUD. So find your player HUD, UI, WB_player HUD. And inside of the event graph, we want to create a custom event called create player display. And we'll be calling this event in our player controller. So here we'll do a create widget, which will be our player display. We can promote it to a variable WB_player display. And let's add to viewport, just like so. Compile, save, you can exit now. And let's open up our player controller, blueprints, my controller. And inside here, we will create a custom event, or rather we'll get our inventory input action that we made earlier. And on started, we will get our player HUD and do a create player display, simply calling that widget or that event we created in our player HUD. So with that, let's compile and save, and everything should work. So if I go ahead and press the I key, I get the inventory and the sound effects work. And if I press tab, they also work as well. So let's print our inventory. It's empty, looks empty here. What happens if we pick up a few mushrooms? Boom, they're added to our inventory. But as of yet, we can't do anything with this. We'll be implementing this in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. And as always, happy developing.